The question I want to deal with is being intoxicated sinful? And if not, then why is it perceived to be so? You see, something that I've noticed is that in all conversations about drugs, drug legalization, drug therapy, drug rituals, there's always this assumption, this unspoken sort of ideological presence. It's usually not talked about in uh, um, on the surface, but it's always under there. Being intoxicated is bad. This is something that most of us have been taught since we were kids, either explicitly or implicitly, and it is an uh, assumption within our language. It's an assumption within the ideologies that uh, drive a lot of our world, and it's an assumption driving a lot of laws, a lot of public policy. Why is it that? Why is that the case? Well, for it can't just be random. It can't just be because people are stupid. One argument is that uh, it's a mechanism of control. That um, drugs, particularly psychedelics, tend to like free your mind and make you think for yourself more, come to your own conclusions, and so power structures don't like that. And it isn't just when we're talking about power structures, hierarchical structures. Keep in mind that we aren't just talking about the obvious example is the church. The church thinks it's sinful and don't and they want to control you. I mean, that's an example, but more fundamental, we have hierarchies all through our lives, and the most important hierarchical structure is our families. And indeed, um, getting intoxicated is, especially for teenagers, is associated with parents losing control. So there's that. Let's face it, though, uh, intoxicants in general are also associated with hurting yourself because you act funny or can't control your body. They are most importantly associated with addiction and having compulsive behaviors that are hurting you or hurting the people around you. A lot of the problem is that the conversation about the morality about drugs really puts all drug use into the same box. It puts all of the drugs into the same box. It puts all of the contexts in which you might use drugs into the same box, and then it wraps up that box and puts a big sign on it and says, "Bad, don't touch this." But what people who do experiment with getting intoxicated and find it can be rewarding, what they know is that actually there are exceptions to that. And the most common one is alcohol. People use alcohol all of the time, get intoxicated, and oftentimes it's actually fun and there is no negative ramifications. So a lot of the issue, part of the issue must be hierarchical. Part of it too is simply staying on the safe side and throwing it all in the bad box. That stuff is just all bad. Particularly folks whose personalities are not tend to be on the more safety prioritizing side. It is really easy for them to take anything that is potentially dangerous and just throw it away because that's just the safest way to do things. And then what ends up happening is if you're more of a risk taker, more of an explorer, uh, the behaviors that you do actually might be a little bit more dangerous than what other people do. And they don't understand that you have intelligent reasons to be doing it and that they're calculated risks. Obviously, I don't think that all drug use is sinful. That's obvious. Um, and so I'm not going to bother to make that argument. My main point in um, exploring this area is to understand it because whenever we talk about any kind of drug use, alcohol or anything, this is the conversation that is always underneath the hood and usually not explicitly talked about. And if you're ever in a position where you have to defend your own use of like psychedelics or marijuana or whatever, or if you're ever in the position of having to debate public policy or something like that, you should be cognizant of this issue and drive down home and talk about it explicitly because even we're talking about, oh well, here's the scientific evidence about the blah blah blah. That's not what the real debate is about. The real debate is about morality. It's about um, is it okay to do these things and are we all going to go to hell because of it? It sounds silly, but that's what the debate is actually about.